Welcome, I'm Rogers Anderson, Williamson County Mayor, and today we have a little different twist on what our show will be about, and it's about human trafficking. And we have two people that are with us today to have that conversation, Steve Grissim and Deb Enright. Many of you know Deb, and we thank you for being back. Today's show is a little bit different than we normally do as we talk about different issues and peoples throughout our county, but to me, the particular topic we're going to be talking about today, human trafficking, is affecting all of us in our community. I appreciate you watching this show, and at the end of this, we'll have a special invitation for you. So, Steve, Deb, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
About a few weeks ago, you came to my office, and actually you got in because of her.
Right.
I know you've got a very, very special project that you've taken on with the Rotary.
Right.
And let's talk a little bit about it. How did you get involved in this?
Actually, this happened about a year and a half ago. I attended the International Rotary Convention in Atlanta. And unbeknownst to me, that meeting stemmed from a lot of talk on human trafficking, where the Senator Corker was there presenting, Ashton Kutcher was there talking about Thorn and digital reasoning of Franklin. He brought them into the picture. And also we had the mayor of Atlanta along with a girl out of California that had been trafficked as a survivor speaking. And so it seemed to me, the whole 4 or 5 days really evolved around human trafficking. And when I first arrived, I assumed this is something that happens in another country and it couldn't happen in my neighborhood. And so I was really touched by the passion from the speakers and from the survivor because that was something that happened, transpired in the United States. And so from that, I don't know, my heart swelled up and I felt like I needed to learn a little more about this. So I came back and spent a lot of time researching Google and trying to figure out what's going on with human trafficking. I ran into one place called End Slavery, Tennessee, and so I made contact with them. They are the single point of entry for human trafficking, for the single point of contact for human trafficking from the TBI, from any organization that receives a call regarding trafficking. And so after that, I just started learning a little bit more. It was my year as president of the Rotary Club of Brentwood, the Noon Club. And so I spent most of my year trying to educate our membership on what is human trafficking and what we could do about it. And over time, after becoming on the board of End Slavery, I started serving with them and learning with Derry Smith, the CEO and founder, getting real close. I started learning about Rotary and what Rotary's doing in the fight, and learned that they had an action group called RAGAS, stands for Rotarian Action Group Against Slavery. And so I reached out to RAGAS and just asked them, what are you doing? I see this website. And they said, well, let me put you in contact with a guy named Dave McClary. He's out of Roswell, Georgia, and he is our U.S. representative for RAGAS. So I reached out to Dave, and Dave has been working for 7 or 8 years now in Atlanta on the fight against trafficking, and had started something as far as wanting to engage businesses in this fight. Just felt like after studying everything we did, there was the FBI, the TBI in Tennessee, there was all kind of nonprofits doing a lot of work, but they were all overworked and understaffed, underfunded, and there was a lot of things that we felt like businesses could do that could complete the whole circle of the areas from training to rescue to restoration that businesses could do in their everyday practice. And so we had the idea to start engaging businesses in the fight by using what they do best. If they're a hotel, train their front desk staff to what to do, how to recognize trafficking. And once they do, what do they do with that information? Who do they tell? From restaurants, same way. training their staff, their wait staff, to UPS training their drivers to recognize trafficking, to Atlanta, to Delta Airlines starting to train their in-flight service so that all their stewards and stewardesses, when they saw it and knew say 3 things to look for and they recognized those things, then they would contact the ground crew and just ask those people to be stopped and questioned. And from there, they may or may not be arrested, depending on what they saw. But that was all they had to do. There was no risk. They weren't taking any kind of risk. And I want businesses to understand, we're not asking you to put your life on the line here. We're just asking you to educate your people and to make them aware of what they can do if they recognize that. We recognize that over a girl's life, once she enters trafficking, is about 7 years. It's her lifespan. That's all she's going to live. And during those 7 years, over 70% of those, generally females, some males, will see an emergency room or some type of healthcare clinic. About over 50% will be strictly emergency rooms. So we really need to educate our ER nurses. They're coming in for UTIs, they're coming in for broken bones, they're coming in for a lot of different things. But they're going to have to recognize them and what they can do. They say the statistics say that the average girl will go to a healthcare clinic or a hospital 15 times before it's recognized. So we've got to educate, and we want to do more than educate and make them aware. We want businesses to be equipped to make a difference, but we want it to be just an everyday part of their business.
So Deb, when you all talked to me about this the very first time, I was struck by the data that Steve is talking about. It's almost overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. So how can a small business or even a large corporation do anything about what is an incredibly nasty issue, an uncomfortable issue, and an issue that I think many of us feel will never ever touch us in our world. And then I think certainly from what Steve has been talking about, it happens down the street. So it's incumbent upon us to make it our business. No matter how vast or how glaring or how big it might seem, I think why we're here is to let everybody know that it can just take one conversation and you can change a person's life and give them freedom.
Excellent point. When we talk about, it's almost hard for me to get my arms around this topic. I don't know that it's affected me personally, but I know it's affected our county. And it affects a young lady, a young girl, for the rest of her life if she survives it. Right. And to think that you're going to try to make a difference, and being a Rotarian myself, we've crusaded for years about eradicating polio. Finding water in those hard places throughout more third world countries, but we have them in our own United States also. And to think that Rotary and you, or both of you, are trying to hit this head on, because it's not a topic, as you both have already said, that anybody really wants to think about.
Right.
And so you all are reaching out in the first part of 2019 in January, and you're trying to educate businesses, you're trying to educate our community about the very topic that none of us wants to talk about, and that's human trafficking.
Right, right.
It's not a matter of just coming on our TV show. It's not a matter of that. It is actually reaching out, because you and Deb cannot reach out to all the people. We have to have help.
Right.
And I think, while I'll let you do the particulars, I think what I find inviting about this effort is that what Steve is working very hard to do is to create a model, right? So it's a model to build capacity, not only in your own corporation or organization or government sphere. It's really so that Tennessee becomes that place that, even though we border all of those states, those traffickers know that once they cross into our border, right? Because everybody's watching. And hopefully the kids that are trafficked will know that everybody's watching. So what I like about, and I really do want you to get into the particulars of the January meeting, because what he's formulating are these very easy, accessible, not hard to do templates that can go all over Tennessee and beyond, that do just raise awareness. But beyond that, and what I really like about it and why I brought it to you, is because it gives people something to do. It's not just, isn't this terrible? It's a dark world, these poor kids. But now it's incumbent upon you to do something. So.
And before you go into that, I think people need to realize we're probably, and I don't know if this is good English, but coming out of East Tennessee, I can get away with it. But, we're playing with the term young people, young girls, but quite often, and majority of those are children.
That's right.
They're under the age. They're people coming from other countries, whatever reason, seeking freedom, tricked into it. But these are children. These are boys and girls that at any time could be in any of our high schools, or should be.
Well, and that are used for commerce.
Yes.
I mean, that's when it really, that's when it's got to hit your gut, right? They're used for a transaction of business. And that's why businesses should stand up and say, no, not in Tennessee, not anywhere. But to get to that point without just saying that's really awful, you have to really know what are the signs, how can I help, who do I call? And so I think Steve's got a terrific model that you're bringing to Williamson County, and we're lucky for that.
Well, let's
in
talk
January.
about it. So what's
But
that?
I like to say, on the commerce, the reality is this is a $150 billion industry. Billion. And it's going to overtake the drug industry, I think. It may already have. Why? Well, if you sell a drug, once you sell it, you got to have another drug to sell. A girl is reusable, or a boy is reusable, resellable 10, 15, 20 times a night. I mean, they're seeing this is a profitable business that keeps on giving. And, I may have this girl for 7 years, but think how much money, if I can trade her 15, 20 times a night, I make a lot of money off this not disposable person.
So let's talk about your event in January. Give us the dates and the time.
It is Friday, January 11th, and one reason we chose January 11th is that is the International Day of Awareness for Anti-Human Trafficking. So that corresponds with the national day that is recognized as anti-human trafficking. And so it is a breakfast that we're having. Only people that really are invited are businesses, and we like to have from the top down. We need the decision makers that can come in and make these calls and say, we're not going to stand for this in our corporation. And we're going to evaluate many things. We'll train our employees to recognize it. We'll look at our supply chains to make sure that we're checking out our supply chains, that we're not seeing a lot of forced labor and also trafficking in there. We're going to watch our employees to make sure they're behaving when it comes to a computer in the office. We're not going to have things like this go on at our corporation. So we need that CEO or that CSR, corporate social responsibility person, to come in and say, here is what we're making a corporate stand, and this is what it is.
I can't imagine any corporation not wanting to be engaged in this. I can see we have to get the message out, and that's one of the reasons we're here on the TV today, is that if you want to be engaged, we want you to be engaged.
Right.
But this particular meeting you're having on January the 11th, on that Friday, for that breakfast, is really geared towards the business community. But there's so much that the listening audience today and tomorrow can do by helping us get that message out. Many of the people out there might know they can spread the word more than you and Deb can do, or
Right.
what I can do over the next few weeks to be sure that we get a good turnout.
You know, it's so indicative of Williamson County, right? That the mayor can say, it doesn't have to be a direct from us or whoever's putting on the opportunity to learn. It really is that grassroots. So for everyone who's watching and for people who live here, you do have great significance and leverage.
Absolutely.
You just need to, don't be silent, right? Don't be silent. Speak up and let somebody know that on January 11th, they can make a difference, but they just need to show up.
Well, and when you think about this community of Williamson County with all of our 6 cities and the abilities to get things done, I recently read a report just this week of the benevolence based off of 2016 tax returns and the giving of monies to organizations. Out of the 95 counties, Williamson County ranked #1 across the state of Tennessee in that ability to give back. I realize that there are a lot of people in Williamson County that do very well financially. I also know there are people that don't do as good as others. Every community has those. But to think that you're #1 in giving back to the Boys and Girls Club, the United Ways, whatever organization, whatever church, whatever synagogue that you feel is important, that you're making our community a little better place in which to live and work and raise our children, and to hopefully help when we as individuals can't do it, but as a group we can, and there are many of those out there.
I think Williamson County, and you can see it by the statistics you're just talking about, we take care of our own, but we take care of folks we don't even know.
Sure.
And I think this is that piece, right? I may never, ever, I may have walked by, I may have seen, I may have even spoken to somebody who's being trafficked and I don't know it. I hope to learn the signs so that I will. But even if I don't ever have that one-to-one or even in my circle, it's important for me to get involved.
If you have your event, or
Right.
when you have your event on January the 11th at 7 a.m. at the Enrichment Center, and the Enrichment Center is one of the buildings on the OBGA side on Columbia Avenue, right next to the library. Everybody knows where the library
Beautiful.
is.
Yep.
And it'll be host to, I think, a lot of individuals, men and women, and that will want to find out more, and that's what it's about.
Right.
What are the next steps, Steve?
Next up, we'll ask you to just give us your name if there's an interest there in your company's name, and we've got a team, and if that means one or all of us coming out to your corporation and sitting down with you and trying to help you organize and make some decisions, we would be glad to do that. There is also a toolbox that a company.
Not a real toolbox.
It's not. It's kind of a toolbox. But for the last year and a half, all I've done is research, and I've got a toolbox or a couple binders really thick of information, and I found a company called AFRJ, and they're the ones. Deloitte actually put the money up for that's one thing because they're very technically, and so they took what they do best, which is IT, and they came up with this toolbox there's one for churches, there's one for schools, there's one for businesses, and one for communities. And so in that business, whether you're a plumber or you run a big company, there's probably an example in there of a company doing something already in your world that you can look at and go, okay, I see how I can apply that to my job. But we also know everybody's busy and they may not going to spend a lot of hours in that toolbox. So that's why we're here, and we can help and make some suggestions and hopefully put you through that quicker. But that's a great thing that they can leave with to help them make some decisions.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, that's exactly right. But I think, Roger's really, it's just honing your lens in on things you don't even know are right in front of you. And to know that there are a lot of resources that can be helpful, but coming back from this event, besides all the support that we hope to give everyone, it's just that you're just more aware. Not that isn't this a terrible thing?
Right.
We've got to do something about this, but walking away and going, I can now do something about it, and I have to tell other people.
I would think, and you mentioned this in the different organizations, that the many churches and places of worship that we have in our community, if we can get the message out to them, they could engage their memberships.
They can. The reason we're doing this for business only, and we're not allowing really nonprofits in the room. Well, I'm on the board of a nonprofit.
Correct.
I mean, we need them, but I don't feel like businesses, they want to talk business language. They don't talk nonprofit speech. And therefore, then if I'm in a room with a nonprofit that's doing amazing work in this area, I'm liable to just say, well, what can I possibly do? I don't even understand this issue. You're over here doing this every day. That's your job. Well, that's why we're trying to, one way a business can help is by helping a nonprofit financially. But that's the difference. You mentioned all the other good works in this area. We're not asking them to come and bring their checkbook. We're asking them to come and bring their resources.
That's what I was getting at. It took me a while.
We want them to come and bring their resources, their connections, just take their everyday business practices and use that for good. And so if they want to give financially to a nonprofit, that's great. We highly recommend that. But we're asking them just for their connections and their resources. It's all we want. Because I know every time I get somebody coming, do I need to bring my checkbook? No, I don't have anything you could write your check to unless I give you a name of a nonprofit that I'd love for you to give money to. But that's not what we're about.
Okay. So the young people here in this audience have said, you got 5 minutes, Mayor. You got to wrap it up. It's gone quick. And I'm sure that I've overlooked some question that you or Deb would like to get out there. I do want to touch on it one more time to put it on your calendar if you're watching this show, or if your son, daughter, wife, husband is corporate America. Put the date of January the 11th, 7:30 a.m. at the Enrichment Center. Enrichment Center is next to the library. Have a little coffee there.
And it's only going to last till 9 o'clock. So we're not asking you to come for the whole day.
That's right.
It's just
A
about
good
an hour and a half.
That's right.
And hopefully they will hear from a survivor of trafficking. They will hear from someone from the TBI to speak about what's going on in the state of Tennessee. And they will also hear from a company that's already making a difference out there in what they're doing. I would like to say what's going on right now in Nashville is Tennessee is getting the recognition for the second year in a row for having the toughest laws on minor trafficking in the state. So for the U.S., Tennessee has the toughest laws on the minor sex trafficking.
Can't be too tough.
And we're getting that award as we speak. It's being announced probably as we speak. And so it's a great thing for the TBI that they're doing great work on making a difference and stopping this. But hopefully we can stop this before it starts. That's what we need to do.
Debbie, you're just biting at the gums to say something.
No, and that's horrible. I guess for me, it's just don't ignore this. This isn't, just don't ignore it. This is an opportunity to make this county even better than it is, because there are kids out there that are counting on us, and they don't even realize they have a voice. So let's be their voice.
Steve, one more time. It is
January 11th.
7:30 at the Enrichment Center. But
That's
now
a
somebody's
Friday
got
morning.
great. And if somebody's got a question, can they reach out to you personally, or we just got to wait till after Christmas?
No,
to
no,
find this
they
out?
can reach out, and I think you're going to put that up on the screen.
Well,
They'll have my email, and I can even let them put my
Steve
cell
G
phone.
at ragas.online.
Right, and there's no .com or .net. It's ragas, R-A-G-A-S .online, O-N-L-I-N-E, and that's it. So Steve G at ragas.online.
Well, we're just about out of time, but I do want to bring everyone's attention one more time that human trafficking is dealt with severely in Tennessee. Probably needs to be more severe if it was left up to most of us thinking of our grandchildren.
Right, exactly.
But for children that are embarking or coming from those other countries, they're just trying to figure out what's next in life. We have to step up. I think that's the right thing to do. And I pray that you'll be very successful. I'll be there
thank you. I appreciate
helping
it.
whatever I can. Sign off, comments?
Just come, please come. Come and enjoy some coffee and learn some great, great information.
Steve,
And
thank you for taking time out
Thank
and
you.
coming
Appreciate it
over.
very much,
and
Rogers.
we will look forward to being there on January the 11th at 7:30 at the Enrichment Center. Thank you and have a good day.